so. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Welcome back, everyone, to Grow with Google Design and Thinking for Entrepreneurs, Part 2. Basically, in today's session, we'll build upon Part 1, where we'll aim to identify challenges faced and craft new test solutions. My name is Kenyatta Reed, and I'm Business Development Manager with KR Elixir. I say KRE a lot. So KRE is a solutions and staffing firm with expertise in cloud migrations, data analytics, ML, AI, and more. We're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, with offices in India and Chile. KRE delivers right-fit technology-driven solutions and advisory services to decision makers. We have worked with several Fortune 500 companies in Atlanta and globally. For further information, feel free to visit our website at www.kreelixir.com. KRE has been a US PAC member since 2020. With that being said, please allow me to introduce our trainer for today, Mr. Porter Wong. Porter is an executive in residence of Plug and Play Technology Center and Alley Verizon Ventures Palo Alto. Porter serves as mentor at the U.S. National Laboratory Entrepreneurship Academy, the University of California Entrepreneurship Academy, and Clean Tech Open. He is a consultant of the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency, Northern California Business Development Center, and California's Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development Small Business Technical Expansion Program. Porter is a member of Ontario Canada's PV Caucus. For those of you wondering what that is, that's a working body that provides influential inputs to government, to the government to shape solar, photovoltaic, governmental, industry-wide regulation and policy. Porter also served as chairman of IEEE Computer Society Santa Clara Valley chapter. Prior to actively working with startups, he held C-level positions and senior management positions with 4 successful tech startups. 2 went IPO and 2 were acquired by Fortune 500 companies. Porter, thank you so much for being here. Welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today, and especially thankful for Kenyatta's introductions. So welcome to the Design Thinking Entrepreneurs, for Entrepreneurs webinar part 2. Today, we are going to learn the principle of the design thinking process and how to apply that process to create innovative solutions for identified problems. So if you have questions, please post your questions at the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And Kenyatta will read the questions at the end of today's workshop. We will try to answer as many questions as possible today. Okay, so let's get started. So last week in part 1 of the presentation, we learned the first 2 phases of the design thinking process. So today we are going to learn the other 3 phases of the design thinking process, and together how the 5 phases of the process can help you to more effectively build products and services that address the challenges of your targeted audience. We will go through each of the 3 phases of the process and discuss how you can apply those concepts to your own ideas, starting with identifying your target audience challenges and then crafting and testing the solutions you have for them. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, so in the part 1 of the workshop, we cover what is design thinking and also understand your audience. And today we're going to talk about how to identify your customers' challenges and then craft and test your solutions. So what is design thinking process, right? So design thinking is a methodology used by designers to define your audience, identify the problems, and to derive and build solutions to the problems. You might have design thinking to come up with your first business idea, or to improve your existing products and service, or to solve complex problems. Next, please. So let's recap, right? What are the 5 phases of design process? Again, the process was created by Stanford University and the company Ideating, and it's being successfully used to create projects, small ones, as well as big ones. The methodology includes 5 phases. So you can all see on the slide here, empathy. In this phase, you actually observe your ideal audience, engage with them, and immerse yourself in the challenges and needs. Good design is always about understanding the needs of your users. The second step is define. In the defining phase, you will express the problem of your users in the form of their point of view. We have covered empathize and define phases in our last presentation. So in this session, we will discuss in detail of the following 3 phases. Ideate. In the ideation phase, you will transition from identifying problems to finding solutions for those problems. And then after that is a prototyping phase. This phase is all about getting the idea out of your head and into the real world. And lastly, test. The last phase is about testing. You can create the next iteration of prototypes, test, learn, and iterate. And continuous refinement is an ongoing process until you have a product that is satisfactory to the customers or your audience. Next, please. Next, please. So slide number 5. Let's go to 5. Yep. So ideate, right? So let's jump into the first phase in the design thinking process, ideating. Slide 6, please. So again, like from our last session, right? So we have empathize with our chosen users, analyze and synthesis those observations to define a problem using a problem statement. So now it's time to ideate, or in other words, create ideas. So this is the phase where we think about all the possible solutions that come to mind. Next, please. This is so there's a popular ideation activity called Crazy 8s. It is being used quite a bit in Google for the design process. And so let's do the exercise together. So you can either use Google Docs or just a piece of paper, or use a piece of paper or a pen or pencil to do the exercise. So let's open a Google Docs. So in your Google Docs, you want to insert a 2x4 table. So you do that by clicking insert on the top of the navigation bar of your Google Doc, and then hovering over the word table, and then you click on that, you will see a pop-up menu. And then from there, you click the block icons, and then you can choose a 2x4 box and to create your 2x4 table. Or if you prefer, you can draw just, draw a 2x4 tables on a piece of paper. So in each of the table or of the box or rectangle, what you want to do is to write out a different idea of how to solve your user's problem. Maybe you have 8 new ideas. Maybe you will have 1 new idea with 7 ideas that build up on that one idea. The point is to practice letting loose and creating as many possibilities as you can. And don't worry about the feasibility right now. Moonshot is okay. Next slide, please. So let's go through some example, right? So the beauty of this process is that we can let our mind go wild with ideas. And so we go back, let's go back to a couple examples that we talked about last week in the part 1 of the webinar. So the first example, we mentioned targeting women of color looking for all natural hair products. Now you might already have in mind what types of products or service you want to offer your users. But in the ideating phase, it's all about considering all the different ways in which you can offer them a solution to their challenges. So your first thought may be to create an all-natural hair care line for women of color, or you may consider, just creating, not creating a product, but as a database or app, for your ideal customers to order the products. So you become a distributor or, reseller. And then additionally, one of your ideas may be just to open a, an actual hair salon. So where you only use all natural hair products. So just, put your thinking hats on and come up with as many, different ideas as possible. Now let's go to another example that we used last time. So let's say the target audience is Latinx college students looking for temporary housing. So the first idea that comes to mind may be creating an online roommate matching service for Latinx students specifically. Or if you may consider going the product route for this group, you may consider investing in buildings that you can furnish and offer as temporary rentals to your user group. Or maybe you just, thinking outside of the box. So what about if students didn't need temporary housing? You just need to create, some online learning platforms or program, and then they can just study and get the college credit at home. So all these ideas are valid. So now I think you have a taste of how the ideation phase can open your mind to new and different ways of solving problems for your target audience. Next slide, please. So ideally, right, this recommended practice is to have as much time as possible to engage in unrestricted brainstorming during this phase. But for the purpose of this session, I will pause for about 3 minutes so that you can practice creating some ideas guided by the problem you think you want to solve. So let's, remember, right? No idea is too crazy. What you might think of now could be something your competitors brings to life in the future. So you will be ahead of the game if you recognize every possibilities. Okay, so let's take 3 minutes and then work on the table.
Hey guys, as mentioned in the chat, if anyone has any thoughts that they like to share, please share them here within the chat, or either my awesome team from US PAC will unmute you if you raise your hand, and they'll give you control here. So thanks. I think we have one comment there about time management.
Yeah, time management is always a problem, because I think most of the let's say entrepreneurs, right, when they first start the having some business idea, they have the full-time job, and try to squeeze time to do that. It's kind of difficult. And then if you are a small business owner, then you basically got so busy, you don't have time to think about other things that you wanted. So it is a common problem, but but these steps are so important. You might just need to every day, even you can find 10 minutes when you sit down, right? Find 10 minutes, find 5 minutes, and put your thought together, right? So it's crucial. That is a step that I would say actually nobody can help you other than yourself. And then you might want to maybe like every morning, or maybe every day at the end of the day, just find like 5-10 minutes, or you sit down and then try to prioritize what are the things that you want to do the next day or the rest of the day. Yeah, I think that would be my answer.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any thoughts they'd like to share here? Once again, you can either raise your hand for the US PAC team or either put the comments in the chat.
Hi,
Mhm.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Balaji Rangamanar. I have an IT consulting firm called Event Plus Soft. So I think my idea, right, when I was talking to you, right, when I was looking at last first session and this session, so I was just thinking through, like for example, the pandemics, right, which is currently causing a lot of mental health issues which are coming up. So I was thinking, why can't we create an app which will help for the people who need some help. They can come into this app and get connected to the people who can able to guide them to come out of the mental health issue. So converse them, right? And not just like a chatbot or some robot talking automatically, right? Have some real person come in and talk through the issues and see whether the person can able to get help to come out of that. So that was my 2 cents of this creating an from idea to see whether that will work.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so that is a very, very good idea. So I think there's lots of people try to address these issues using, different, solutions or innovative ways. So my suggestion for you is to try to, join some of the it could be a user group or meetup group, or even I don't know where you're based, but some of the startup pitch competition, whatever that kind of thing, like those one that uh, focus in the mental health issue or something related to your healthcare services, and then just start going to some of those and then observe and see, if your ideas already, are being implemented by other people. And even there's solution out there, how can you have something better than what's offering outside? So I think the first step is kind of like, you want to see, whether your ideas is unique, and then also how to, uh, gather like some current market situation, right, or competitive information. So that probably the first step you want to do.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I think I'm based out of Chicago suburbs. So where do you like? Is that kind of a forum? User forums are there out there who kind of bump these kind of a design thinking ideas? Is it any user forum?
I'm sure they are. I mean, because I'm in the San Francisco area, so I don't quite know about East Coast, but specifically, right? But then I do know, okay, the where to start, right? The first thing to start is go to, let's say, I don't quite sure actually, let's say University of Chicago have a medical school or not, and look for the school and college in your area that they have innovation center, or they have like startup garage. Okay, so if they do, then they actually frequently host events for entrepreneurs and startups, and they are always free. So those are the area that you should start looking at. Like for example, right? So in the Bay Area, right? So we have University of California, San Francisco, UCSF, right? Which is a basically all things related to medical and healthcare. And then they actually have a very aggressive entrepreneurship program. So as like, Stanford and UCLA and UC Davis. But like, in case, like, let's say in Atlanta, like Georgia Tech is very aggressive. So I'm sure you might want to check with U of Chicago and also other university in the area. And then also you can the Google, let's say startup accelerator, right? So if you do that, or even go to Eventbrite, like check out like, mental health startup. I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of like, you will get a lot of information around the area, about those events.
Sure, and thanks a lot. It really helps. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if no further questions, maybe we can, any other questions? So maybe we can move to the next slide then. Okay, so the next step is basically prototype. Next slide, please. So then, how do we know if the solution that we outlined in the last exercise will work, right? So first thing we need to do is to work on a prototype. So a prototypes are a less expensive, scaled down version of the solutions created in the ideation stage. So as you build your prototype, one by one, they are either accepted, improved, and re-examined, or rejected based on the user's experience. Now, remember, this is just an experimental stage. So you aren't trying to create a workable final product here just yet. But this step is very critical. So as you are testing out your ideas to gain as much feedback from your potential users as possible, through the prototyping process, you will gain a better understanding of the constraints inherent within the product or feature and problems you may not have foreseen. So you will also have a more informed perspective of how real users will react to and feel about the final product while they interact with the prototype. So, oh, sorry, back up one slide, please. Slide 1. Yeah. So once you have collect enough data from a prototyping stage, it's time to finally create the MVP. So MVP is minimum viable product. Next, please. So this is, what we call the simplest version of a workable product that is developed with the core features that will satisfy early adopters, but also provide the lowest risk for investors. So that means the MVP should be cost-effective and quick to develop while still providing the basic functions that you have decided on. And you will have an idea of what your early adopters, or what we call the first users that are eager to try something new, will be looking for, thanks to the prototyping stage. So now let's look at a couple examples, right? So the top examples, right? Okay, so let's say the goal is actually moving something from point A to point B. So there are 5 boxes at the in both examples. So let's look at the top example. So there are 5 boxes, and each represent each iteration of a prototype. The first iteration contains like an image of wheel, right? You think, oh, I need to move something, I need the wheel. The second is like as the thought process go, and then the second thought is, okay, so we need 4 wheels and we need 2 axles. And then the third image is merely the base of a vehicle. And the fourth is the dual one vehicles, but with no steering wheel. And the last prototype is fully built out vehicles. So because, as the thinking process go, there isn't much you can do with just a wheel or 2 wheels with an axle, or the body of a car without a wheel or engine. So the only viable product is the fully functional vehicles with all the bells and whistles. So such that you can move something from point A to point B. Now, let's look at the second example, the bottom 5 boxes. So the first image is a skateboard. So that's something we can move someone from point A to point B. So now in each step of the prototyping process, you might make iterations to the initial product as you get feedback of what works and what doesn't. So in the second iteration here, you may decide to change up the product slightly and make it a scooter. Or you will see in the third iteration, a bicycle. But perhaps your audience want more speed, so you end up with a motorcycle or a vehicle. But only after you have taken these MVP steps through the prototyping phases to know what works and what doesn't work for your audience. So now your minimum viable product actually is not your end goal. It's one of the many steps that will take you to your final established product. But to get to that point, you will do what I'm sure sounds familiar to you now in the design thinking process. Keep iterating, right? So you need to iterate again and again. Keep testing your product or service with your user base and follow the feedback. So maybe, right, that will lead you to more changes and enhancement. Maybe you take backward to remove certain features altogether. But what is important here is that you are staying flexible and listening to the needs of your user base to create the best and most well-received version of your products or service. So here I can give you an example. So if anyone who listen to audiobook, right? So there's a company called Audiobook. When they first started back then, they actually they have a very cranky device that hook up to a car, right? And then they find out there actually not much market there. And then they come up with ideas to actually making an MP3 device to play audiobook. But what actually makes the company successful is actually do away with all the hardware and just have a collection of audiobook, right? So now they are part of Amazon, right? So this is like, as you can see, this is a real life example, right? How the iteration works. So in this slide, we won't be prototyping together in this virtual session, but following this class, you will want to sit down and think about your options for prototype. Pick one of your feasible ideas out of the 8 you came up with during the crazy exercise, and flesh out how you would build the solution to include the technology needed, time required, money needed, and resource that you might already have available to you. And next slide, please. Okay, so last, but certainly not least, is the testing phase. Next, please. This is the testing. It's the final stage of the design thinking process. We won't be, practicing this phase together, but if you were to implement the design thinking process in real life, you want definitely to test out your solution, evaluate it, and depending on how it goes, you might or may not have to go back and repeat the other phases. Testing is also an iterative phase. What does that mean? It means that you continue to go back to make change, tweak features, and then in some cases, you may even decide to scrap the solution for a different one you identified during the prototyping stage. So let me actually here also give you a real life example. So there's a IoT device, Internet of Things sensor company. They're combining a small mesh size box hardware and also AI and machine learning. So what does it do? What it does is like basically you can mount the small device or simply attach to any equipment or production equipment that use motors and run on electricity. So what it does, it will like pinpoint and tell you when the machine's going to fail. It will alert you to when you should maintain your equipment, and also pinpoint where the failure will happen, right? And then actually with over 95% accuracy. So they need to collect a lot of data from the equipment. So at the beginning, their solution is to collect all the data using the hardware and then push the data to the cloud. So then they need to have some kind of communication, right, with the cloud, with the server they have. So the first idea was, okay, so everybody have Wi-Fi, right? So I can just, provide a solution by using customers' Wi-Fi network and push all the data to our cloud. And turn out that in most cases, the clients, right, manufacturer or food processors, whatever, they don't like that idea because they don't want, especially the IT department, they don't want to have a foreign object, right, tagged into their, Wi-Fi network. So then end up actually they need to add the cellular data solution to the product. So this is one example, right? That is something you can only find out during your testing phase with your clients, and also they need to go through a couple iterations before they have the final products. Next slide, please. Okay, so now you have learned the different phases of the design thinking process. So you might be wondering, how can you use design thinking to make a new idea more successful, or to take an existing business or product and tailor it to the changing needs of the customers, especially in today's climate. a lot of business model actually got, turned upside down. So let's look at an example. Here, I'm not using the real name of the business and the business owner. So there's a Sunrise Coffee. Jane is the owner of the Sunrise Coffee, and she's a former barista. She opened her first coffee shop, on the first day of the Great Recession of 2008. Now she owns 3 cafes. And while Jane was initially hesitant to tackle new digital tools, her online presence became critically important when the COVID pandemic came to her city of Las Vegas. So she knew she needed a way to keep her company solvent for the coffee shop, its employees, and the community. So she has to look at the changing needs of the employees and customers. And also this time also brought new importance to supporting her customers and those first responder whose work was critical to the health of the community. So Jane took her business almost entirely digitally by selling her sustainably sourced coffee beans online. She also added a web function that allowed visitors to donate coffee to first responder and healthcare workers. And she would kick in like 2 additional bags for each one donated. So she was amazed at the response. So customers started flocking in droves and buying her coffees online. The media actually took notice as well. So her business actually was growing quite a bit during COVID. Next slide, please. Okay, so that concludes the final 5th stage of the design thinking process. So again, to recap the 5 stages, they are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and testing. So that's all I have for today. And thank you for listening, to joining our webinar. So if you have any question, please post it to the chat box.
Wow, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Very, very enlightening and informative. As Porter said, if you have any questions, free to post those in the chat box and we will go through those. Don't be shy, everyone. There's a question about how much time is typically spent on each stage of the design thinking process.
Actually, it's really hard to say, right? So it all varies, right? So sometimes some people get into the right market and also come up with the right solutions and things can go viral just like that. And some people are just struggling. So, so it's really hard to say. I think that you just need to start the process, and then along the way, when you have so depending on the feedback of your audience, you will know. So if you start off something, you keep try, and it's almost like, okay, so you open a pasta or pizza place, you open the door, and you have no customers. Or maybe next door, right, they have different way of doing pizza. And, you know, the first day when they open the door, they might have, you know, lines wrapped around the corner. So it's hard to say, but then you will know the signal. So the question is like, the key thing is like, don't afraid of failure, especially you are a first timer. You just need to, you know, keep trying.
Okay. Any more questions? Give it just a little bit longer, just in case anyone's typing there.
Okay. Yeah, I can give you like 2 more examples.
Okay.
So one example, like these are all, you know, these like entrepreneurs, they starting up their business, and these are all like female entrepreneurs. And so they both start the business right before COVID hit. And one is actually, you know, the 2 ladies, they actually designing shoes for ladies that is very comfortable to wear, but also you can wear those, and not just walking, but actually can go to the office. So it's not like a sneaker kind, right? So we're very, you know, nice and freshy, you know, freshy designs, and then, you know, Italian leather and things like that, right? But so they go to Kickstarter and try to do a fundraising, and then the COVID hit, and a lot of people actually don't go to the office anymore, right? So you don't really need to have a hybrid shoes that you can, you know, walk, you know, on the street, but then also go to the office. So they actually still they did relatively well, but still hit the target of 20,000, but not like really exceeding the goal. And, you know, also, you know, getting, you know, more like business coming in after that. I think it's just because, you know, the timing, you know, I think big part of it is the timing issue. So versus another, you know, young lady, actually she just, you know, graduated from college. And then she started a DIY project herself to building watches, right? And all of a sudden she thought, oh, you know, well, why don't I make it as a business? So basically she have like different design, watches design, and then people can order the watches online, and then they come with an entire, you know, a complete DIY kit, right? And I think because of COVID, a lot of times, you know, a lot of people have time at home, and then, you know, they buying this as a gift, right, for the friends or family, whatever. And same thing, right? So she went to Kickstarter, and her goal was like 30,000, but she ended up getting $100,000 worth of sales. And then after that, right, I think this year she is doing like over, you know, close to $500,000 worth of sales. So sometimes, you know, a lot of time is the timing and also the market condition too. So it's really hard to say. I mean, there's really no black magic there. You just need to do the hard work and try your luck.
Awesome. That was a
Mhm.
great response.
Mhm.
Porter, thank you again so much for the useful information. And I would like to thank all of you and invite everyone to the next Grow with Google series on December 9th and 16th. It's titled Go Global with Google's Market Finder Part 1 and 2. Thank you, USPAC, for a phenomenal program. I hope everyone enjoys the remainder of their day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.